The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
Act 1, Scene 1, 1982. Office at St. Elizabeth's Psychiatric Hospital.
We've seen this before, Ralph. An intelligence officer about to expose a massive global network trafficking, weapons, drugs, plutonium, you name it, is found dead in a Georgetown hotel, hanging by the belt of his bathrobe. No, this was no suicide. You tell the DOJ to look around the room for answers. You and I both know which government officials need to shut this down. Hell, you've got the director of CIA asking for my signature. Senator Nielsen needs to take a deep dive into the truth about these globals sitting on the Foreign Relations Committee. We're talking trillions of dollars. Ralph, into thin air. Let them print their article in the morning newspaper, plaster propaganda on the evening news. It doesn't take Sherlock Holmes to dig beyond a headline. Oh, come on. Unexplained helicopter crashes, sudden traffic accidents, random muggings on a morning walk. We knew. We all knew. We just didn't want to see what was staring us in the face. No, you tell Director Jacobs, no chance in hell I sign off on another death certificate. You tell every last one of these high-hatted secret society types, not this time. This time we hit back. This time we scream names from the rooftops. I've already told them. Wait.
Incoming call on another line beeps.
Dr. Finity. Yes? I'll send her in. Ralph, I'll call you back. I've got George Bennett's daughter at my office.
He hangs up phone and opens door. Eileen Bennett, 29, an imposing yet pensive young woman enters.
Didn't you get my messages? I had to take a bus from New York to Philadelphia, a train from Philadelphia to Baltimore, cut my hair, changed my name, and got in a middle of the night Greyhound to Union Station. I mean, this isn't some kind of joke.
Let's sit down.
I don't want to sit down. I want my dad's files, which by rights belong to me and my family. I submitted the legal retainer weeks ago.
The situation has become more complicated than we anticipated.
Is that why those men down there are following me? Scrutinizing my every move.
You've been provided a security detail for your safety, Miss Bennett. We're in uncharted waters, as you know.
I know what I'm up against, and I will not be intimidated.
Well, let me once again assure you that everything we discuss is kept strictly confidential.
Nothing's private anymore, I know that.
Your novel has had tremendous publicity.
I didn't write it for the publicity. It should have been published as a memoir. Publisher needed more evidence. He had a follow-up appointment with you that afternoon, didn't he?
Yes. I encouraged him to stay for as long as necessary. He needed time, perspective. I understood there were limits on what he could openly speak about.
You were a psychiatrist.
What he couldn't say, he wrote down. He wrote everything down.
These notes he kept. These journals.
There were binders. Thousands of loose leaf pages in binders.
What happened to them?
No one knows.
No one seems to know anything. My mother cried herself to sleep every night for 2 years after he died. She trusted the doctors. She trusted the agency. She blamed herself for not demanding he be released.
Tell me about Jimmy.
Jimmy? Why?
He cares about you, Eileen.
Jimmy cares about his reputation.
His father, Senator Fitzpatrick?
Senator Fitzpatrick doesn't serve the interest of his constituents or this country. His interests are money and power. So he plays whatever games necessary. I saw it with my own eyes. I don't need any evidence.
You've known each other a long time.
Fitzpatrick's lived across the street. He was Paul's friend mostly.
You trust him?
I don't trust anybody.
Yes, put him through. Ralph, I'm bringing Eileen Bennett onto the call. Have a seat, Eileen. You'll want to be sitting down for this.
Eileen sits, lights to black.
And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed.
Scene 3, later that evening, lights up on a darkened living room. James Jimmy Fitzpatrick, 33, slightly disheveled, business-class good looks, with an intensely preoccupied mind, sits in the dark. Eileen enters, puts down suitcase, sees him, and gasps in surprise.
Jimmy,
That would be me.
what are you doing here?
Waiting, the usual.
You scared me.
I tried writing, but we know how that goes.
I read your letters. You're sitting in the dark.
Where you've always kept me, in the dark and guessing.
Are you here to taunt me?
I'm here to congratulate you on your blockbuster novel.
What's that supposed to mean?
Exactly what it means.
Well, what'd you do? Climb through the windows?
Key from the flower pot, like old times.
Well, we aren't teenagers anymore, Jimmy.
Worth a shot.
I'm not the same person, and neither are you.
Well, you look the same to me.
Eileen checks behind artwork on walls, under lampshades, and behind books on bookshelf for a recording device or surveillance camera.
When was the last time you answered your phone?
I stopped answering my phone a long time ago.
Well, what is exactly going on, Eileen? Your family's worried sick about you.
They live their lives. I live mine. I've stopped trying to explain myself.
You're making calls to President's Chief of Staff, Secretary of State, guys in the military. These are government officials.
Yeah, the very people one expects would be interested and of some consequence.
Nobody gives a damn. The system is broken. I figured that out pretty quickly.
He pulls baseball mitt from shelf and tosses ball back and forth into mitt.
What's all that?
It's called the Freedom of Information Act.
I see. Unearthing the dark depths of governmental cover-up. Look, I'm in a tough spot here.
What spot would that be?
Well, for one, you're digging into things that should be left as they are. I mean, come on, what's the point, Eileen? When are you going to move on from this?
I don't move on. You do, though.
What's that supposed to mean?
When you dated the Wellesley girl, for instance.
You broke up with me. What was I supposed to do, shut down my life?
You never loved me.
Give me a break. I came to that godforsaken place in New York and you slammed the door in my face.
I was over it.
You were crying and screaming. That's hardly over.
Would have never worked. We both know it. You want me now because you can't have me anymore.
You don't get to tell me that.
Fine.
She walks away.
Why do you always have to do that?
What?
Walk away.
You walked away from me.
I went to college. What was I supposed to do?
We didn't love each other, Jimmy. Otherwise, it would have worked.
Oh, there you go again. Making yourself miserable, telling yourself the worst.
I don't need you psychoanalyzing me.
And I don't need you punishing me.
Well, your country needs you, Jimmy. I have everything right here.
You're what I need.
This is serious.
You bet it's serious.
You present at congressional hearing tomorrow.
Yeah, and I need a haircut.
It's being broadcast, right, on national television.
Yeah.
This is a list of the government officials, each of whom has a sealed indictment in their name. Senators charged with federal crimes served marching papers before the world.
What are you talking about?
Got the details from the sheriff's deputy on the senators you name.
This must be your next novel.
It's real, Jimmy. And you were made for this moment.
No, you've got the wrong guy on the wrong show in the wrong scene.
You're the one, Jimmy. the junior senator from Virginia, shows the world what justice looks like.
And gets thrown into Bethesda Hospital under lock and key. This may be hard for you to believe, but I'm not interested in making history. I just want to buy a farm, drive an old sports car, and have a family.
Is that so?
Yes.
Try to be your friend.
Friends. We're not characters in a novel. We're flesh and blood.
And we're beyond some young adult chemistry.
Hardly. Have you spoken to your Aunt Beatrice?
Have you?
Well, I see her occasionally, round robin, sipping cocktails.
Scene 4. A few hours later, Jimmy reads through paperwork. Aunt Beatrice, 60s, enters, shaking rain from her hat and coat.
Hello, my dear boy. I thought I was going to drown out there.
Hello, Beatrice.
Have you seen The Long Lost?
She's on a bike ride to clear her head. I'm beginning to understand why.
Well, it doesn't take a Nobel laureate to know when a person's spinning wheels. Narrative process. Just another one of the many fancy notions of a self-indulgent artist, if you ask me. But no one does ever ask me. No, never.
She finds a lady's blonde wig on end table and holds it aloft.
And just what is going on here, young man?
Well, apparently she's being followed. It's a disgrace what these files detail. This stuff is sickening.
You better pour us both a drink, son.
Jimmy pours drinks at cocktail cart.
Most of us don't have the guts to stand up to how corrupt things have gotten. Mr. Bennett obviously had the guts.
George had a death wish.
Do you know anything about these diaries he kept? 3,000 loose leaf pages and binders, she says.
George wrote fabulous letters and kept excellent notes.
Oh, so you've read them, these diaries?
I didn't need to read them. I lived them. George should have never taken a job in CIA. He wasn't cut out for that sort of thing. Just look what they did to him, those bastards. George believed in the principles upon which this country was founded. If that's not pressed to the wall, I don't know what is.
Mr. Bennett was the only one on the block who actually thought about things.
He did far too much thinking.
How did he come to the agency?
He attended a meeting at the university. They call them information sessions.
And I understand he retired some months before his death, didn't he?
You don't retire from the agency. He was assigned to some of the highest level operations they had going. His first assignment was the U-2 spy project.
In Rochester, New York.
Undercover at Kodak, developing and deciphering U-2 photos before the Russians shot it down and Eisenhower wouldn't apologize. Paul and Meredith were born in Rochester. Some are just too good for this world. Nothing but a damn fool. Pour me another drink, son, would you?
Oh, man, I'm in a tough spot.
Well, who isn't? I don't sleep anymore. KGB, the Chinese communists, the anarchists. These people will slit your throat in your sleep. I wore a microphone in my bra at every Georgetown bar for months. I did what he asked me to do. I became an expert at cocktail bar chit-chat. I had those Capitol Hill suits spilling confessions about their blue-collar crimes with unabashed bravado. I got a lot of high-ranking officials on the record.
What are you saying? You work with the agency?
I was trying to help George. The country's in grave danger, he said. Well, when isn't it? I said. Human history is fraught with horrors.
Do you know where those binders might be?
Oh, they're long gone.
What happened to them?
Confiscated into the annals of the deep, dark agency web. And yes, they killed him.
Is that what you think?
Oh, I don't think it. I know it. You have no idea what these people are capable of. You work on Capitol Hill. Like, take a look around once in a while. It's a cesspool.
Look, I know stuff goes on. It's political hits, cold-blooded murder.
Well, you better get current. You'll need your head in the game soon. When you're young, you want to move mountains. When you're old, you sit on a hill. And it's not a Capitol Hill, but it's perspective, which brings a certain amount of relief. It's true what they say, however ugly it may be. The truth sets one free.
Gospel of St. John.
What's this you're reading?
Page 89 of 100 declassified documents regarding CIA Operation Red Stack. She FOIA'd these.
Our girl is on the bullseye. Well, oh well.
The question is, what can we actually do about it?
Well, we can do whatever is necessary. George was someone the president could trust, and he knew enough to make a lot of very powerful people very uncomfortable.
About what happened to Kennedy, you mean?
Look, the kids went to school together at St. John's. George coached Little League. I mean, they met at daily mass.
A good place to conduct classified briefings.
A good place to catch the president up on everything they were keeping from him. Can you believe the nerve? I mean, so for anyone who doesn't believe there's a shadow government, all they have to do is connect a couple of dots, such as these. It's no conspiracy. Trust me.
The doctor at St. Elizabeth's. He's provided depositions to military intelligence.
Oh, has he?
And apparently there are sealed indictments for numerous high-profile arrests. This is serious stuff.
You better believe.
Are we sure she's protected?
She's protected. She's also gutsy, our girl.
This guy in New York, the Russian.
Dmitri.
I thought his name was Yurik.
That's an alias.
He's KGB or with the Russian government?
No, my dear boy, the KGB is the Russian government.
Lights dim. The following film footage plays against the windows on stage. Exterior neighborhood, McLean, Virginia, day. Walks flagstone path to front door. She takes a key from a flower pot. Footage fades to black. Lights up.
Ah, there she is. Hello, my dear.
Aunt Beatrice.
It's been far too long. Let me look at you.
Life in New York.
Life in New York, where everything is upside down and wrong is right. And what has been so important in New York? Writing your second novel? Writing a world history wouldn't take this long. Me, oh my, your hair's different.
I cut it myself.
Don't they pay you for a bestseller?
They tap your phones and read your mail.
To be expected, darling.
Barbara Burton called after you left.
Did she?
Yeah, she said she saw you on the train. She was concerned.
I didn't recognize her at first.
Did you meet with an editor at the Washington Post?
Well, let's give her a chance to settle in. Come on. We long to talk, don't we, darling? Come, tell me everything, Eileen.
Eileen?
Have you told him?
Told me what?
First things first.
Beatrice presents an envelope to Eileen.
What's this?
A letter you wrote on a school trip to Rome. I found it in a shoebox. I could hardly believe the poignancy, considering the moment.
I saw him. We were waiting outside the museum while Miss Jacobs was getting the tickets, and Dad came down the steps, and I saw him, and I thought, wow, there's Dad. What's he doing in Rome? So I called him. Dad, it's me, Eileen. He turned and looked at me, and he just looked at me. I just stood there stunned. My own father didn't recognize me. Miss Jacobs was handing out tickets, hurrying the class along, and I just wiped away my tears. It was nothing. Something in the wind, I told them.
Operation Red Stack.
Black budget funds conveniently untraceable. Washed through the Vatican Bank, and no one ever knows. Regimes are changed for corporate interests. Wars designed and executed for every reason other than the ones we're told. One evil armed against another in mineral-rich regions now controlled by global corporate interests. All the while calling it protection of the free world.
This cardinal Mr. Bennett was meeting provided documents of banking irregularities.
It was Murphy he was meeting. It was always Murphy. And when he didn't show up, George knew. They had gotten too close. That's what happens when you follow the money. Father Murphy and George understood each other. Murphy became a priest, and George was destroyed by an American intelligence agency. It was Murphy who tipped off George about what was going on. Vatican City is a 2-mile radius, its own nation state, and conveniently exempt from providing financial records, the ideal place for foreign monies to be discreetly transferred. The alliance George and Murphy formed had a real chance to change the course of history. We are talking about a transnational, global cabal. These are the facts.
Did he ever indict who was involved? I mean, here in Washington?
Well, he was all wound up. He talked for hours. It was exhausting, so I tuned him out. And when he finally stopped talking, he sat in this chair with a rosary in his hands. A pure heart in a broken world doesn't fare well. I should have cared more, but I didn't care. I didn't want to be a part of it. You've done it to yourself, George, I told him.
Who's Dmitry Vidal?
He wasn't who he said he was.
No one's who they say they are. He's a communist KGB defector.
I've been trying to tell you, Jimmy.
Holy shit.
There's something you need to know.
There's more?
In New York, I got phone calls, letters, strange things started happening. I thought it was me, all the stress. Maybe I was losing my mind. Someone wanted me dead. It's your father.
That son of a bitch.
He's been trafficking uranium for weapons development. UN-backed regime changes in Africa where people are put in place and function as proxies. These same interests exercise tremendous influence here in Washington. It was your father who had me followed, and I have an article being published tomorrow in the Washington Post.
Scene 5, hours later. Successive shafts of light and shadow fall across the stage. Lights up on Eileen and Beatrice sort through slides and photographs in glow of lamplight.
Who's this in the car?
That must be your mother.
Oh, that's you, isn't it?
Oh, it is me. Well, I'll be. Why did I ever get rid of that dress? Beatrice Bennett and Tommy Thompson. Oh, he's now the ambassador to Italy. Oh, I was a skinny little thing. What's that?
It's a map with markings, a map, symbols next to places, the State Department, Treasury, Soviet Embassy.
The White House.
Line through town and cross.
The bridge.
Your apartment in Georgetown?
Oh, George, you've left a map. You were the one who found the note, remember?
What note?
Next to the phone, in the kitchen. Wasn't exactly a note, more of a statement. Leave it to George to get right to the point. You brought it to your mother.
I don't know what you're talking about.
It's goodbye. On a slip of paper.
Phone rings. Startled, they let it go to the machine.
It's Jimmy. I'm on my way to pick you up for dinner. I'll be there in 20 minutes.
Don't do what I've done, Eileen. Believe in love. Don't think you can protect yourself. And he's held on all these years.
He didn't hold on when it really mattered.
Oh, my dear Eileen, a woman can't experience a man's love until she's learned to let go of wanting to remake him. I tell you this because I know. I've learned more from what I haven't done than anything I ever did. He's devoted to you. And you need devotion. You just don't know it yet. I shall wend my way home. Go and enjoy yourself. Goodbye, dear.
She kisses Eileen on cheek affectionately and exits. Eileen sits at desk, pulls out stationery, and writes, but soon stops and starts again.
Dear Jimmy, what does it matter writing novels if we can't correct the fictions in our own lives? What love is there but a total love? The same love at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end. A love that loves for the sake of love, not what it gains, but what it gives.
Listen, Ralph, tell Kennedy, not Dallas. If he insists we detailed the trip up and down, left and right, no stone unturned, I want to be on the tarmac in view of his fingernails, for crying out loud.
Dad,
What's that, kiddo?
why is Aunt Beatrice crying on the patio?
Aunt Beatrice has had too much to drink. Not easy being a grown-up. It's not easy being a kid either.
I hope I never grow up.
The world needs you, eh?
It's kind of lopsided.
It's perfect, kiddo.
It's my first cake,
You made it yourself.
and you and Mom made me.
Your mom made me the luckiest fellow with all you kids.
DNA.
DNA. Right. 1 minute, Ralph.
Have a safe trip, Daddy, and don't forget my first communion veil at the shop Mother ordered with at Rome.
I won't.
Murphy, we're all set. My flight to Rome leaves at 3:30. Ralph Brennan's working the inside loop on this doctor at St. Elizabeth's. These guys who wake up inside enemy lines become our greatest assets. This psychiatrist is a game changer. Yep, just like college in the playoff game. Now we bring it home. To God and country.
We shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe to assure the survival and the success of liberty. Every thoughtful citizen who despairs of war and wishes to bring peace should begin by looking inward, by examining his own attitude towards the possibilities of peace. Too many of us think it is impossible. Too many think it is unreal. But that is a dangerous, defeatist belief. It leads to the conclusion that war is inevitable, that mankind is doomed, that we are gripped by forces we cannot control. We need not accept that view. Our problems are man-made, therefore they can be solved by man, and man can be as big as he wants. No problem of human destiny is beyond human beings. Man's reason and spirit have often solved the seemingly unsolvable, and we believe they can do it again.
I keep asking myself why I think they killed my father. Who killed Kennedy? And did my father know?
Act 2. Rooms are the same as in Act 1, although pivoted to a new angle, giving prominence to a home office and appointed with fresh flowers.
Listen, Ralph, this Operation Red Stack, the Joint Chiefs of Staff are playing a dangerous game. What we've got going in Rome, follow the money, Ralph. The Vatican Bank documents are key. These bastards sitting on the Foreign Relations Committee, they've got funds washed through the Vatican Bank, crawling all over Africa and the Middle East, setting up terror attacks, keeping civil wars alive and well, while they pull up billions worth of natural resources. This is their cash flow, and these politicians serve their interests, not the American people. We both know it's diabolical, Peter Ralph. I'll touch base when I land.
Scene 2. Lights up on living room and a cocktail after party. Annette Bennett, late 40s, with natural elegance and restrained depth, loads trays with finished cocktail glasses and napkins. Beatrice Bennett, 40s, stylish, artsy, and with a propensity for the dramatic, sips cocktails with Dmitri Vidal, 40s, a Russian. George arrives home from trip. He enters front door with suitcase.
George, you're back.
Yes, home early.
Annette kisses George affectionately and takes his coat.
Beatrice,
Have a drink with us, George. Life's a bore without cocktails.
I'll have a club soda.
Of course, darling.
She goes to hang up his coat and stops to examine it.
Club soda. How do you do it, my dear brother?
I prefer not to complicate my life.
Dimitri hands George a large manila envelope.
What's this?
The list.
Soviet journalists.
Every single one.
It's a bloody business.
Marked for execution in bloodthirsty Marxist system.
What are you two whispering about? No telling secrets in polite company. It's unfair.
I was giving Dimitri advice on my kid's sister being a loaded gun.
Don't condescend, George. Dimitri is from the Soviet Union. My guess is he knows a thing or two about guns.
I was a propagandist for the Communist Central Committee.
Weapons of another kind.
George, what's this on your coat? It looks like blood.
Maybe it's lipstick. George, you rascal.
Oh, please. I was shot at in Rome.
How very James Bond.
You were shot at in Rome. Seriously, more like another nosebleed.
It's always Rome. What exactly do you do in Rome? Ruffling Italian feathers, apparently. Which birds? The Mafia? M16? Hell, we've got the KGB right here in the living room. Did you go to college? They must at least have some education behind the Iron Curtain.
Moscow University. It's run by the KGB.
I'll wash it with baking soda.
Of course it is.
We either become diplomats, foreign journalists, or spies.
Which one are you now?
Which one you want me to be?
George is engrossed in papers from envelope. Annette gets bottle of wine from cabinet.
Beatrice, this French Chardonnay. The Peters served it at dinner last night. It's wonderful. You must try it.
I'm on to gin and tonics, Annette. Can't you see?
The irony is being a Soviet newscaster having to tune into Radio-Free Europe to get the news. I think get put on a list because of it.
Dimitri looks at books on bookshelf.
Why don't you take a load off your feet and have a seat, George? You're making all of us nervous.
Annette brings George a club soda.
Can I make you a sandwich?
I'd be lost without her.
You were born lost, George. Most men are.
Taste the cocktails, why don't you?
I'll drink whatever, however, and whenever I damn well please. How about that?
Young Eileen enters distressed with Annette, who delivers sandwich.
Back to bed, young lady.
She can't sleep, poor girl. Come have a sip of Auntie's cocktail, darling. This will knock you right out.
Say goodnight to your father.
You have the most beautiful First Communion veil.
Lights change to spot on young Eileen, who holds her father's handgun. Scene 3. Lights up on home office wherein George and Beatrice discuss the situation.
I won't be an instrument for the character assassination of a man I happen to be very fond of, George. The first time in 1,000 years I'm genuinely keen on someone. I really don't think he's got any information for the reptiles at Central Intelligence Agency. He's a Soviet professor who wants to become an American citizen. Not every Soviet is a communist Marxist seeking to infiltrate our institutions and destroy the country, George.
No, they intend to infect us so we destroy ourselves. I need to know what I'm dealing with.
I prefer to be kept out of it. I have a dress to pick up at the department store.
You'll need a dress with a collar to wear a microphone. Or that necklace she wore for New Year's Eve, the fruit, I think it was.
No, George. Colored rhinestones. And it was the 4th of July. Oh, I'll put your voice trap in my bra. I've already bought the dress and I'm wearing earrings. Tell it to me straight, George. If I'm going to do this, I want to know absolutely everything.
Classified, unclassified, or absolutely necessary?
The classified, being that I now work for the CIA.
You got it. Paramilitary operations are being run in regions of corporate interest by CIA-backed global elites, we'll call them. Black budget projects, never approved by Congress and in the shadow of federal budget.
Paid by American taxpayer dollars, no less. How much are they squeezing us for this time? These criminals who call themselves officials in service of the free world. So we've got a transnational crime syndicate running the government. Is that what you're telling me, George?
only to get worse if we don't expose it.
Oh, I'm already sick to my stomach. Now the unclassified, I need to catch my breath.
Anyone observant enough can see how global corporate interests benefit from envisioning a one world government. The only thing that stands in their way, sovereign nations, namely the United States. Why? Because sovereign nations obstruct the global centralization of power. Save the world, make it one, so the republic must be destroyed. And how? From within. And it began with the taxation, the Federal Reserve, and senators being elected not by legislatures or by the people, but by these same corporate interests.
Sounds like corporate communism.
Western civilization is on the line.
Oh, you should write a novel, George.
Crimes against humanity in the name of national security, that's their game.
A rigged game can get downright discouraging. No wonder I drink myself to death. Perhaps you should go back to teaching high school history. I'm fine with being an alcoholic, whereas you have a family to think about, George.
It's not a future I want for my children.
So I'll run spy games across a restaurant table with some handsome Russian. Will I be asked to take my dress off?
Of course not.
Then it's no James Bond movie. So when are we doing this Hollywood stunt? I'd like to get it over with.
Look, Beatrice.
No need to explain further, George. It's fine. I'd rather not be single the rest of my life, but my country calls. What if he knows what I'm up to? Won't that blow your chance to pad the team with a KGB defector? You could be shot in the back of the head.
We've got to be sure he is who he says he is.
Oh, you're a loyal fellow, George. Just try not to get yourself killed. Or me, please. I'm not quite ready to leave this miserable world just yet. I do hope we win this war. I'd rather not have the country communist, even though I have a crush on one.
She puts on her coat to leave.
I'll send you instructions on a meeting point for Saturday.
Fine. I'm off to the bar to drink properly.
Beatrice.
Yes, George.
Thank you. And not a word.
I'm excellent at keeping secrets. You know that.
Try to pace yourself, would you?
Oh, good night, George.
Lights up on Beatrice and Dimitri at restaurant table. Wine glasses and finished dinner plates between them. Beatrice is dressed in a pale gold dress and leans back to examine the surroundings.
Tell me again that nonsense about your fellow countrymen and why you left to be an American citizen. I could use a pep talk about my country.
More cautionary tale than pep talk. My first assignment was in India, working as translator with the Soviet aid group, building refinery complexes in Bihar state and Gujarat state. I worked with several Indian pro-Soviet journalists. They were friends of mine. We were all motivated by the Marxist philosophy of understanding and cooperation between nations. Proletarians of all countries unite.
What caused you to snap into reality?
I found a list. I was in an embassy meeting at the Department of Information. The Indian journalists I worked with were on a list marked for execution. When I saw this, I was sick, mentally and physically sick. I sat in the meeting numb with horror. I saw myself stand up and say to everyone, we are a bunch of murderers. It has nothing to do with friendship and understanding between nations. We're thugs. In a country which is hospitable to us, a country with ancient traditions, and we are nothing but murderers and thugs.
My God. But you were safe.
Now, someone in my position is never safe.
But you're here now in America.
I'm here to sound the alarm.
We clearly have different political ideologies. Perhaps you underestimate the American principles and people.
It's not America that I underestimate. Human nature is vulnerable to corruption anywhere. It's what I know, having been on the inside. Communism envisions a Marxist America, not by kinetic war, but a deceptive war of influence and infiltration into your universities, schools, cultural institutions, and corporations. One day, government officials right here in Washington will be bought and sold. They are already. And the hand which feeds them will own and control them. Have them by the, well, as they say.
I know what they say, Professor. I wasn't born yesterday.
These same hands will crush them like cockroaches in the end.
Too many politicians pack their pockets, I agree, but they're not communists.
Not yet, they're not. It only takes one generation properly corrupted to lose the precious gifts of liberty.
But if you're a Russian spy, can I trust you?
Americans make too much of spies and espionage. That's Hollywood. The irony is an American actress getting filthy rich and being a dissident, criticizing your Pentagon. This same actress is a communist dream. Liberal leftist Americans too ignorant to realize they're cooperating in the destruction of their own freedom.
I never liked actresses. And unfortunately, I've grown less and less fond of my country. The culture is pornographic and the elitists at Harvard are atheistic.
Communism's greatest victory will be when the majority of Americans have learned to hate their own country and thinking it's noble to do so.
You defected. How does that work exactly?
I knocked at the door at the embassy in Rome.
That's where George conducted the interviews.
Yes. But you have to understand, our line of work is a hall of mirrors. No one can ever be sure.
Well, that's why you need my help. And why George needs you. No one knows who to trust. It's not only political irony, it's a broad state of human affairs. No wonder you haven't complimented my dress yet.
You're an intriguing American, Beatrice Bennett.
It's my Scottish blood.
I've made arrangements for the exchange. Anyone around George that cannot be trusted will be made known. This is the only way that I can ensure our collaboration is seal-proof and will have maximum impact.
And here I was hoping your interest went beyond top-secret paperwork exchanged in a dark alley.
We both know it does.
You're not asking me to slip poison into his coffee, are you? He is my brother, after all. George is loyal, idealistic, a sensitive inhabitant in the forest of ourselves. That's a French poet wrote that. The French write good poetry.
Romantic poets, the French.
Yes, they're quite imaginative.
Tell me, Miss Bennett, what is it that you hope to accomplish?
I don't know. Perhaps one day, Dmitri, Vidal, you'll love me.
Scene 4, back to present. Writer Eileen is in the living room. We are a honk of the car. She puts lipstick on in the mirror.
Coming, Jimmy.
I'm not going to let you do it. I'm not. We've got one life, Eileen. Quit running away from the one thing that will make both of us happy. Let's drive as far and for as long as it takes. Get away from everything. Start all over. Somewhere only you and I will know.
Back to present. Lights up on Jimmy and Eileen, who sit at the same restaurant table as the previous scene with Beatrice and Dmitri.
So, are you dating some artsy New York type? Is that it?
It's none of your business.
You haven't answered my question.
Well, you first. Why did your father put out a statement that suicide was questionable only to withdraw it the next day?
I make it a rule not to follow my father's logic.
Have you ruled out following your family's money?
What's that supposed to mean?
How is it that certain political families get filthy rich off a senator's paycheck? Charitable groups in mineral-rich countries, perhaps? I mean, that's how politicians do it, don't they? They give corporate green lights and receive discreet kickbacks. An arrangement which keeps these same resource-rich countries impoverished while corporations move in as though the benefits belong to them. So while your father was padding his pockets, my father was risking his life. You follow the money, Jimmy.
I'm not responsible for what my father may or may not have done. Everyone knows politics is corrupt, but that doesn't mean they go around killing people.
They shot President Kennedy in broad daylight on national TV.
The mafia killed Kennedy.
Don't be naive.
Is this what defines you? I mean, it's an obsession at this point. What are you avoiding?
There you go again, psychoanalyzing me. I mean, you should have been a psychiatrist. My life is being threatened, my every move documented, and you have the nerve to call me crazy.
I didn't call you crazy. I didn't mean it like that.
I mean, what's the point of defining myself if I can't even walk down the street?
You need me.
I need you to take an interest in the world you're supposed to be representing. I mean, ask the hard questions. Hold people to account. Don't let them get away with it. You know, someone pressured your dad to do that, Jimmy. It's simple logic. Cause and effect.
The following film footage plays against the windows on stage. Exterior backyard, twilight. Jimmy, 20, crosses yard to Eileen, 17, who waits on an overgrown tennis court at edge of yard. They kiss.
I kissed you in the weeds on the tennis court, remember?
It wasn't the best kiss I've ever had.
Oh, don't bullshit me. You were weak in the knees and called me crying every night for 6 months. I saw him that day. He was wearing Paul's Notre Dame cap. I was getting my practice gear from the car. It was raining. I noticed Coach. I figured he was getting the newspaper from the yard, but when he kept walking down the sidewalk, I thought, Mr. Bennett is walking alone in the rain. Things must be tough. He went on a ways, stopped, then turned back, like he'd forgotten something. His coat, his tie, his briefcase. Only to go on a ways further, turn back again, like he was trying to remember. Yeah, I could have followed him. I should have followed him.
They torment people, Jimmy. Isolate them, threaten their families. He was a marked man, and he knew it. He wouldn't have done that. I never believed that he did.
You're a writer. Sometimes I wonder if you live more in what you create than in reality.
Blackout.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice.
Scene 12. Lights up on living room. The glow of a television is seen. Eileen searches for a station.
Here it is.
And Beatrice makes a cocktail at the cart. Live broadcast from Capitol Hill, hearing plays against the scrim.
This is a day for the history books.
I'm shaking. I hope Jimmy's okay.
Have a cocktail.
Oh, Jimmy, you can do this.
He'll be the hero of his generation. Let's hope it doesn't go to his head.
She turns up volume on television set. Lights up on Jimmy, who stands in the glow on stage. Archival C-SPAN footage of live Senate hearing plays against the screen throughout. Interior, Senate chamber, day. Leader of the House gavels hearing into order. Jimmy stands before a committee of senators, press cameras, and attendees.
Thank you, Leader, members, and the American people watching. I am here today on behalf of all who value freedom, the preservation of our Constitution, and the rule of law. Here in Washington, we have several high-ranking officials who, in the shadows of our democracy, have run a proxy government. These foreign actors have worked in coordination with global networks in a decades-long, tightly orchestrated campaign to undermine American sovereignty and threaten her very survival as a nation. I stand before you today on behalf of an equally long-standing effort to gather evidence of this clandestine cabal and to expose it to the American people. Here in this very chamber and across the highest ranks within our federal government and are individuals who have betrayed their oaths and abused their power. Around the room, you will see U.S. military and sheriff deputies in whose hands are federal arrest warrants. President, you have lied. This Congress has lied. Chuck Greeley was my friend. And he's dead because you lied.
Film footage shows pandemonium breaking out in the chamber. Broadcasters cut into the program with commentary. Lights up, giving prominence to Aunt Beatrice and Eileen again.
Were you in love with him?
Dimitri?
Yes.
I would have sold my soul to be with him. I did sell my soul, as a matter of fact.
And now, I mean, it changes. It goes away, doesn't it?
Being in love takes center stage until you realize there is no center stage. Life is full frontal, and love of whatever kind cannot save your life or make your dreams come true. But I knew it was him. And so I went to that restaurant, guzzled French champagne across a linen tablecloth. Hope to God he wouldn't notice my hands were shaking, my blouse dripping wet. But as always, Dimitri said just enough. He was always way ahead.
But do you love him?
I do love him. One holds a certain regard for the man one loves. I regard him because I see him and I know him. And we've been loyal all these years.
Loyalty is crucial.
Loyalty, my dear, shows itself in a number of surprising ways, that's for sure. Oh, they misspelled your father's name in the Washington Post. They would have hated that.
What, they did?
Mm-hmm. The newspapers never get anything right. He came to my door that morning, stood on the doorstep, head down, hands in his pockets, at a loss for words. And he'd always been such an articulate person. I didn't care anymore. I didn't answer the door. Oh, but my dear and only brother, we have won the war. Your father would be proud, you being a writer. He was a wonderful writer. He just didn't know how to protect himself.
Lights up on George Bennett, who stands at window in home office.
Pulled me off the detail to Dallas. I was boarding the plane.
George, I brought you lunch. What's the matter, darling? Is everything okay?
Murphy. They killed Murphy in the middle of the night. Strangled him in his bed in Rome.
What? The Doyles invited us to join them for dinner tonight.
Let me think about it.
It's Fred Doyle. You know him. He's all puffed up about being the subject of this documentary on the Apollo project. His photogrammetry work is finally getting the recognition it deserves.
You build a camera that goes to the moon, you ought to get credit for it.
Should I tell them 8 o'clock?
I don't think so. You go.
Please, George. This will do you good. It will do us both good. But
I can't, Annette. Give my best to Mary and Fred.
you haven't been yourself. We've been here before.
I'll protect this family. Whatever I have to do, Annette, you've got to trust me.
You have to think of yourself, my dear.
I might never walk out of there, Annette.
That's silly. You know that's silly for you to say that. I'm worried about Eileen.
Eileen is Eileen. She's at that age. She's asserting her independence.
She's extreme and far too passionate.
Teenage Eileen enters with a notepad in hand.
Dad, I found this in the kitchen next to the phone.
What's that?
It's your handwriting.
George takes notepad in hand.
What does it mean?
What it says, I guess.
What does it say?
Goodbye.
Goodbye? George.
An upcoming trip. Where'd you say you found it, kiddo?
Next to the phone in the kitchen.
Teenage Eileen plunks down into an armchair.
When can we look over my application to Parsons? The deadline is in 3 weeks.
Your father and I would like you to consider St. Mary's in South Bend. Joanna Peters will be there. Amanda Frost is in her sophomore year and absolutely loves it.
I'd be miserable in some Midwestern farm town with church bells.
You aren't the one paying tuition, young lady.
You wouldn't dare say that to one of the boys. You never say these things to anyone but me.
That's enough, Eileen.
It's true. You want me miserable. You can't stand the fact that I plan to go out and make something of myself.
Eileen, that's enough.
You see, George? You give in to her whims, George, which only makes it worse. I will not tolerate another episode, young lady, or you can go to community college. Is that understood?
It's a prison in this house. I will lose my mind spending a single second here longer than necessary.
Eileen, that's enough.
But Dad!
She needs to stop and think for a moment about someone other than herself.
You don't have to talk about me like I'm not in the room. I'm here. You can speak to me. It's my life. I'll fill out the application to Parsons myself, and I'll pay my own tuition if I have to. I'll be 18 in 3 months. I'll get a job and be legally independent.
You live in this house now, young lady.
And every single time I tell you what I want, it's always no. It's always be someone else, Eileen. Someone you want me to be. How can I be myself if everything that ever means anything to me is crushed? My own mother refuses to understand me.
Teenage Eileen rushes from room sobbing.
What are we going to do with her, George?
We're going to let Eileen be Eileen.
It terrifies me, her being out on her own, out of our sight. I have tried to understand that girl, but the more I try, the more I realize I don't think I've ever understood her.
Just believe in her, Annette.
You've always understood her. You two are cut from the same cloth.
DNA.
What cars do you chauffeurs recommend? Well, you could drive a Rolls. Or a Duesenberg, of course.
But if you really want to know, it's Rabbit's Weekend. It lights up on living room. Eileen writes with inspiration at a typewriter.
What's the point of creating a dream board when all I know of dreams is having them crushed? I'll drive as far away from here as I can get. That's what I'll do.
Eileen, it's 8:30. Paul, John Fredericks is in the driveway. Let's get a move on. Meredith! Kathleen, you tell Meredith to get up out of that bed and out the door. Eileen, don't forget you have to pick up today at St. John's.
I'll be far gone by pickup, Annette.
How far have you gotten?
I just crossed the border into Delaware.
Where are you going?
I'm moving to New York City.
Where they do musicals on Broadway?
That's for tourists. I plan on calling it home. In a big city, there's a lot of living going on. People doing things. Big things.
She's gone forever, isn't she?
But she'll come back.
After she finds herself. I don't see why someone has to go away when you are who you are, wherever you are. She ought to just deal with it.
Hello? Hello? Hello, is anyone there?
Are you going to answer it? Are you going to let her in?
Hello?
The door's unlocked.
Oh.
Told you.
Doesn't she hear me?
When she wants.
She's obsessed with politics.
She's a writer.
She's a novelist, not an investigative journalist.
Tell her that.
I'm part of this too, you know. Weren't you going to answer the door? I mean, I just came in. It wasn't locked. It's kind of dangerous, isn't it? To not lock your door in the city? Crime is up. And aren't you being followed? So shouldn't you be more careful, especially when you write what you write about government officials being corrupt and criminal? He left a note, you know. He left a note. He said he couldn't remember, but I think he did. I think he didn't want to tell us. He let us down, and she didn't help matters. I'm not about to let my life be ripped to shreds because my parents can manage their lives. I know who I am, and I just cannot let my life be interrupted by someone else's tragedies. Tragedies that aren't my fault. And I refuse to carry them around like stones from which to drown myself. I'm reading Hamlet. That's why I bring up Ophelia. Drowned herself with stones. So did Virginia Woolf, apparently. She put them in her pockets. Ophelia loved Hamlet. He was obsessed with politics, corruption, assassinations, maybe even crazy. Who knows? It's a fine line. Justice, revenge, mental obsessive disorders. I have a life ahead of me, you know? I have things to do, people to meet, places to go. It's the hospital's fault. They should have helped him. They're the professionals. It's their jobs to know. Had I known, I would have done something. I suppose it's understandable. You researching, writing, digging for the truth. He wasn't only our father. He was a man who had a whole life. Important life. A secret and troubled life. The kind of life I guess someone would want to write about. So, okay. It makes sense. You writing this book about Dad, about what happened and why. And no matter what they try to do to us, the truth is always the truth. I just wanted to have my own truth. I thought I could, but there's a difference between truth and experience.
Who is Father Murphy? You're probably wondering. We'll get to that.
Scene 10. Dr. Finnerty's office at St. Elizabeth's Hospital. George places a stack of binders on the doctor's desk. He sits and places his Notre Dame cap on his knee.
Tell me about Father Murphy.
He was living in a Benedictine monastery in a small town in Italy. We went to Notre Dame together. Ben was my college roommate, my best friend. Dominican priest. They strangled him in his sleep. I saw an opportunity with Murphy. Assessing Vatican bank statements. I knew they were washing money, and so I was insistent. This was hard evidence. I saw us winning. Murphy saw us winning too. He was a good man, a holy man. He said courage. This was the virtue on which all the others depend. You were the asset we were waiting for.
You offered me the opportunity to do what I didn't have the guts to do myself. It was easier to turn a blind eye. Not a day went by that I didn't wonder what I'd gotten myself into.
I can relate. The hardest part is Annette and the kids. The security for my family.
Been arranged.
You keep the notes for a number of weeks until you're contacted as discussed.
You have my word.
Scene 11. Back to present. Lights up on Eileen and Dr. Finnerty. Eileen holds her father's binders.
When I was first offered a post at St. Elizabeth's, I didn't want it. I took it because I believed in paying one's dues. Bide my time. Before you know it, what began as a simple rule of the game takes you way off track. I didn't live by my own principles. I was lost. Then, the only problem becomes having the guts to admit I'd gone so wrong and that I'd done it to myself. I got a second chance. The day her father walked into my office and let me help him. He became the door back to living for all the right reasons. Do what was right, even if it cost me my life.
I'm in Rome as I write this. I was born a farmer's son in Kansas. First in my family to go to college where I studied history. Played minor league baseball for a couple of years. Got married, taught high school history. Lost my second boy to leukemia. Nothing prepares you for when your own child dies. The agency sent me to Langley where Edward could receive treatments at Children's Hospital. Assignments got increasingly deep and broad, smaller teams, harder mountains to climb. I know then what I know now, I might not have taken this path in life at all, but that's the thing. Life happens and there's hardly a thought about options. I saw the road in front of me, growing family, a solid job with the agency. I have so much to tell you, it's hard knowing where to begin. First, let me tell you that I love my family. I love my country. I believe in God. Did the best I knew how to do. I fight a noble cause, many do, but I must tell you, I never thought I would see the day when America's freedoms would teeter in the balance of such a dark and complicated world. Good people destroyed. Hopes dashed. I had to catch my breath. Tonight I fly home to my wife and kids. My name is George Bennett, American patriot, Roman Catholic, husband, father, brother, who against all odds keeps the faith. On for now.
Should something happen to me, please know that I will have done all that I could to protect this family and to find out the truth. Dad? That's a wrap.